The auditorium air crackled with anticipation, a thick, palpable energy that made the hairs on Jamal's arms stand up. He clutched the worn edges of his textbook, its pages softened by countless hours of study. He'd chosen a seat in the front row, a decision that had already earned him a symphony of snickers and whispers from the rows behind. The annual scholarship ceremony was the most prestigious event at Northwood High, and for the students from the wealthiest side of town, it was little more than a social gathering. For Jamal, it was everything. He could hear their words, sharp and cutting, even over the low murmur of the crowd. Look at him, front and center. What's he even doing here? One voice, dripping with derision, belonged to Ethan, the school's quarterback and resident king. His girlfriend, Brittany, chimed in with a giggle. Maybe he thinks they give out scholarships for best worn-out shoes. The laughter that followed was like a physical blow, and Jamal's shoulders tightened. He kept his eyes fixed on the empty stage, the polished wood reflecting the ornate ceiling of the hall. He wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing him react. He'd spent his whole life being invisible, the quiet kid from the poor neighborhood who always had his nose in a book. Today, he'd dared to be seen. His mother's words from that morning echoed in his mind. You stand tall, Jamal. You've earned your place in that room just as much as any of them. She'd worked double shifts at the diner for as long as he could remember, her hands perpetually smelling of grease and cleaning solution, all to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table. This scholarship, the coveted Harrington grant, was his one shot at a different life, a life where his mother wouldn't have to work until she collapsed from exhaustion. It was a full ride to the state university, covering tuition, books, and board. It was the key to unlocking a door he'd only ever dreamed of peering through. Principal Thompson walked onto the stage, his presence immediately silencing the crowd. He beamed, adjusting the microphone. Welcome, students, parents, and esteemed faculty, to our most anticipated event of the year. A day where we celebrate the hard work and dedication of Northwood's finest. He launched into a lengthy speech about tradition and excellence. But Jamal's mind was elsewhere. He was replaying the grueling months leading up to this day. The all-nighters fueled by cheap coffee, the hours spent in the library until the janitor had to kick him out, the part-time job stocking shelves at the grocery store that ate into his weekends. Every sacrifice, every moment of doubt, had led him here, to this uncomfortable chair in the front row. He snuck a glance over his shoulder. Ethan and his friends were scrolling through their phones, completely disengaged. Their futures were already paved with family connections and trust funds. This ceremony was a formality for them, a brief interruption in their carefree lives. For Jamal, it was the final, terrifying moment of a race he'd been running for years. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of hope and fear. And now, Principal Thompson's voice boomed, pulling Jamal back to the present, the moment we've all been waiting for, the recipient of this year's Harrington grant. A hush fell over the auditorium. This was it. Jamal's breath hitched in his throat. He felt 100 pairs of eyes on the back of his head, the weight of their judgment, their amusement. He squeezed his own eyes shut for a second, offering a silent prayer. This scholarship is awarded to a student who has not only demonstrated exceptional academic achievement, the principal continued, his voice resonating with importance, but has also shown incredible resilience, character, and a profound commitment to overcoming adversity. This year's winner has faced challenges that many of us can barely imagine, yet has consistently risen to the top, maintaining a perfect GPA while balancing work and significant responsibilities at home. A slow, cruel laugh came from behind him. It was his son. Sounds like they're really laying it on thick for Mark, he whispered loudly to his friend. His dad did donate the new gym equipment, after all. Mark, sitting a few seats down from Ethan, puffed out his chest, a smug smile already forming on his face. He was the presumed winner, the son of a prominent city councilman and a Strata student in his own right. The narrative felt pre-written. Everyone expected his name to be called. Jamal's flicker of hope began to dim. Of course. How could he have been so naive? He was a nobody. A charity case. The boy in the worn-out shoes. He felt a familiar sting behind his eyes, the threat of tears he refused to shed. He had to be strong. He had to take the loss with dignity. walk out of this hall with his head held high, and figure out a plan B. A plan C, a plan Z, that's what he always did. This student's application essay, Principal Thompson's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts, was one of the most moving pieces I have ever read. It spoke of a dream, not just for oneself, but for one's family. It spoke of turning hardship into fuel and struggle into strength. The principal paused, looking out over the sea of faces, his gaze seeming to linger for a moment in the front row. The silence in the room was now absolute, a heavy blanket of suspense. Even Ethan and his friends had finally looked up from their phones, a flicker of genuine curiosity in their eyes. Jamal's hands were slick with sweat. He gripped his textbook so tightly his knuckles turned white. He could feel his mother's hope, his own desperate yearning, converging into this single, unbearable point in time. He braced himself for the inevitable disappointment, for the name that wasn't his. Without further ado, Principal Thompson announced, a wide, proud smile spreading across his face. It is my distinct honor to award the 2024 Harrington Grant to Mr. Jamal Washington. The name hung in the air for a split second, surreal and electrifying. For a moment, there was nothing, just a stunned, ringing silence. Then, the sound of Jamal's textbook hitting the floor with a loud thud. He hadn't even realized he'd let it go. He stared at the stage, his mind blank, his heart seemingly having stopped. Did he hear that right? Jamal Washington. The silence was broken by a smattering of polite applause, mostly from the faculty. But from the rows behind him, there was only a shocked stillness. He could almost feel the waves of disbelief rolling forward. He slowly turned his head. Ethan's mouth was agape, his face a mask of utter shock and confusion. Brittany looked as if she'd just seen a ghost. Mark's smug expression had melted into one of pure, unfiltered indignation. Their world had just been turned upside down. The punchline of their jokes was now the headline of the day. Then, a new sound began to build. It started with a few teachers, then a few parents, and soon it swelled into a thunderous roar. A standing ovation. People were on their feet, not just clapping, but cheering for him. For the quiet boy from the other side of the tracks, the shock on Jamal's face slowly morphed into a watery, trembling smile. Tears, hot and real, finally streamed down his cheeks. But these were not tears of shame or disappointment. They were tears of pure, overwhelming joy. He shakily rose to his feet, his legs feeling like jelly. As he walked toward the stage, he passed the rows where Ethan and his friends sat, now frozen in their seats, their mockery silenced, their faces pale. He didn't look at them with anger or triumph. He barely saw them at all. His focus was on the stage, on the smiling principal holding out a hand to him, on the future that had, in an instant, cracked wide open. As he accepted the award, the weight of it feeling solid and real in his hands, he looked out of the crowd, at the sea of faces, now looking at him with respect and admiration. He had dared to be seen, and today, for the first time, they truly saw him. And it was more than enough. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content that inspires. We'll see you in the next video.